What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. And to my left, I don't know, maybe to you guys, right? Who do we have on the other side?
I'm Jazz Keys, and I am excited to kick off this video podcast stuff with you this evening.
Yeah, this is going to be outstanding. I'm really excited about this. For those who don't know me, and I'll keep it really short because Jazz is the star. I'm just auxiliary here. I am Dr. Vibe. I'm the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. And I've done over 1,500 of these over the last 10 years, and I always love collaborating with wonderful people. And a number of weeks ago, Jazz was on the Dr. Vibe show, being epic as always, you know, giving epic content, giving epic thought process. And after one of our epic conversations, we started chatting a little bit. I said, "Hey, Jazz, you want to do some stuff together?" And she said in her beautiful voice, "I'd love to." And I said, "Okay." So I was patient because Jazz and her daughter, you never talk about Jazz without her daughter, were just busy releasing books and being all that. So I said, "Okay, when you're ready, Jazz, let's make this happen." So the last time, I think we had a conversation about a week or two ago, and we said, "Okay, I'm ready." She said, "I'm ready." So I said, "What are we going to call this? You know, we just can't call it." We talked about Jazz and Vibe and this and that. And I said, and I just came up with stuff.
Right.
And Jazz said, "I love that. That's fantastic. Let's go for it." So this is what we're calling it. We're calling it stuff. And basically, it's conversations about culture and current events from an international perspective, from a black lady and a black man's point of view, or we say POV, because Jazz is based in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So Jazz, I am very excited. She's been excited for a long while about doing this. And so can you share a little background about yourself to the worldwide audience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who I am first greeting through this virtual platform, my name is Jazz Keys. I am a clinical psychologist, life coach, speaker, and author. And so I, as Dr. Vibe said, first joined his show to talk about an article that I wrote for Ebony magazine, and we had a very instantaneous vibe, and we had a really great conversation. And so I was welcomed back to join him again, and like the previous one, we just instantly kind of had a natural flow. And so from there, we chatted a little bit and decided that it was worthwhile to kind of check and see where we could take this as far as, again, having some current event and cultural conversations from a black man and black woman's point of view. And so in its simplicity, we decided, and Dr. Vibe, I'll credit this to you, to call this stuff, because we're just kind of doing a potpourri of topics and hoping to shed some insight and have some really deep dialogue. So we are excited to kick off our first show, and I'm excited to start this collaboration with you. Absolutely.
Well, I am humbled that not only am I collaborating with you, but I'm collaborating with your daughter. In regards to,
and you gotta love technology. Oh, there you go.
There you go. So I'm excited to collaborate with yourself and your daughter, and I'm speaking nothing of positive.
I can't.
Oh, hold on. You got me now?
Oh, there you go.
All right, so I'm back now. There we go. I'm back. So had the volume turned down, folks. So I'm human. I like to be transparent. So yeah. So I'm excited about doing this collaboration with yourself and your daughter. And people will say, "Why do you always mention Jazz's daughter?" Because Jazz's daughter is awesome. She's only like 5 years old, but she's outstanding. Not awesome, she's outstanding. And that was one of the things that really struck me with Jazz, is that from the first time I spoke with her, she always included her daughter in almost every other sentence. And that I found, yes, I said, that's the type of person and the type of lady that I want to collaborate with. So that's how we've got to where we are right now. And this is a work in progress, folks. So if you have any suggestions, you can email Jazz. What email address are you at?
Sure, they can email me at info@jazzkeys.com.
Okay, and for me, it's dr period vibe at the drvibeshow.com. We will take all your suggestions. May not take them all, but any conversation topics, how we can make it better. This is a work in progress. Because here's a perfect example. When we first talked about doing or shared about doing this, we talked about violence in the Black community. That was going to be our first topic or conversation piece. I don't use that word. I like conversation piece. But then I said to Jazz, I said, you know what? There is a lot of talk going on about the Black, especially Black men, and I'll give four in particular: Samuel DuBose, Sylvie Smith. Well, four Black individuals, period. Sylvie Smith, Philando Castile, and Terrence Crutcher. Four Black men, my correction, were slain in 3 cities at 4 different times. 4 cases, all eerily the same. Killing came after cops stopped the gentleman, and the men had no physical threat to the officers. 2 were shot running away, 2 were shot in their cars. And over the last few weeks, especially with the Philando Castile the gentleman who, the police officer that killed him, being given acquittal, there has been a lot being written on this. So we may get to violence in the Black community. We're not going to promise, because I think there's enough conversation just on this subject tonight. And yes, I live in Canada, and it's funny, I was sharing with someone in England today saying, well, we don't hear about any incidents in Canada. They do happen. Just to correct, they do happen. So we're going to have a conversation about this. And yes, anyone who's watching live, and again, if you're watching on the replay, please contribute any sort of comments, questions, etc. So Jazz, what are your initial thoughts in regards to the, you're living in America, you live in a city of Chicago where there's a lot of murder. What are your thoughts about this whole issue, just to start off?
So for me, it is, I believe, and this is just coming from a perspective of, yes, being a Black woman, but being a mother. I recall, like, years ago, because my daughter's 6 now, I recall that when I found out I was pregnant with her, as crazy as it sounds, and mothers now will understand, Black mothers will understand, I prayed she wasn't a boy child, right? And my instant fear, without even knowing her gender in the womb, was the fear of her having to grow up to be a Black man in America. And so as I'm watching things unfold, and as we're seeing the justice system just continue to fail us, you continue to disappoint us, and we're seeing police brutality now in ways that we haven't seen before. So we're seeing the cameras, and we're seeing it go live in social media world, and still we're not getting the justice that is deserving. It is more than unnerving on many levels. And so for me, and just in the Black community, it is a mix between rage and sadness and disappointment and hurt and fear. And so you mix all of those elements, and you can tell what conditions are just so uncomfortable.
And I want to break it down a little bit. We're going to break it down a little bit in the conversation tonight, because we want to find out, why are police being acquitted? Not to say people are guilty or not, but there's some underlying things that are of concern here. And one of the things that I've heard from each one of these cases, are Black men are seen as a threat.
Right. Yes, and for me, and not, just speaking from the woman's perspective, I think one of the discussions that has been continuously circulating in regards to, well, how do we appear to be non-threatening, is across the board, whether we put our hands up, whether we are responding verbally and saying, I'm not a threat, I don't have a weapon, or I do have a weapon, but I'm not reaching, because that is what Philando kept saying, I'm not reaching. It becomes a point where, how do you appear non-threatening when the moment you are approached, the moment that you are seen, you are a threat? So in my question, and I guess maybe it's something that you can help me understand, is being a Black man, how do you navigate through this when no way, shape, or form do you seem to be protected?
it's very challenging, and even speaking from a Canadian perspective, that it is always in the back of my mind about getting stopped and what's going to happen. And the only time I was ever stopped in a challenging situation, it actually goes back the night I was graduating from high school. And I was out with a bunch of gentlemen. I was the only black gentleman. All the rest were white. And let's just say the person who was driving aggressive. Let's put it that way. And they took a little bit of a wild corner, and all of a sudden you saw these. Actually, there's two. The police cars start following us, and the guy who was driving all of a sudden he pulled around a corner, stopped, and everyone left. I stayed in the car because I said, I ain't done anything wrong. I'm a passenger. I haven't had any alcohol, etc. And basically the policeman said, okay, no problem. And then I guess the other occasion I thought about was many years ago. I used to shop a lot at a record store, a used record store. Yes, vinyl record store back in the day. And there was a group of us who go down and hang out every Saturday. The guy who ran the store was white, and there was myself of color. There's another gentleman of color, and a white gentleman. And one week I was down there waiting for the store to open because I wanted to sell some of my vinyl with one of the white gentlemen. There, we were standing in front of the door. Cop car pulls up, a police car pulls up. Guess who's the only person that got asked questions?
Right.
And the gentleman who was with me, who was white, was going, that's just really out of order. Like, there was no reason, and I got we're looking for someone, they may have looked like you. Right. So I just sort of went, and we don't got enough time, but many years ago I used to work for the Metro Toronto Police Association, have a banquet hall in the Toronto area, and for a number of years I used to work in the restaurant there. That was an interesting experience. And then a number of years, the more I'm thinking about, the more it's interesting about the other side of policing, that I worked at a restaurant that was right across from Metropolitan Toronto Police headquarters. And let's just say some of the behavior of off-duty officers was interesting.
Right. No, I remember growing up, well, there's a lot of, women in my family. And so when I was growing up, I grew up at the same age as my niece and nephew, because my sisters are a little older than me. And, by the time they had children, I was kind of that oops baby. And so we all grew up together. But I had a nephew, and when we were learning how to drive, one of the things I noticed that my father taught him that he didn't teach us was to put his wallet on the dashboard. So to get in the car, get his seatbelt on, check the mirrors, and to put his wallet on the dashboard. And this was probably 10 years ago. And so as it came up and all these things started, happening, it occurred to me that my father knew years ago that my nephew being a tall black man, and then of course he's a tall, darker complexion black man, so he's even more of a threat appearance-wise. He knew early in life that he didn't want my nephew reaching into pockets and to places to reach for his wallet. So he taught him, again, 10 years ago, to set your wallet on the dashboard so that there is no reaching. And for me, just that you resemble a suspect. I know I was reading an interview about Philando, and the police officer was saying that he resembled someone by the wideness of his nose. And to me, it's like, okay, well, then we're definitely not safe, because that's one of our facial features. I mean, that's one of our ethnic features, is the widened nose. And so if every black man you see, you attempt to identify him by the width of his nose, and that, like not even 40 seconds, you're shooting into the car with a woman and a child, it again presents the question, how do we appear non-threatening?
And I don't understand, and that's one of the key issues about black men being a threat. And until there can be some movement, I think that's part of the challenge in regards to this situation. I think another part of the challenge is that we have to, let's call it fair as it is, the policemen who go on trial, their lawyers are very good lawyers because a lot of times they are funded by police associations or police unions that have a lot of money, and you know, the better lawyer you can get, the better chance you're not going to get convicted. And a lot of times you have public defenders who are working with limited budgets and limited resources going against lawyers who are funded by police unions.
Right. So you have not only the attorneys that are funded, but they're backed by a system that benefits from you not being convicted, right? So all in all, it is from the moment that you are pulled over, stopped, to you being processed or your defense, you know, should you end up in some of the positions that many of our black men have ended up in, it is a lose-lose. You can't win because of your complexion. You can't win because of your, you know, appearance. You can't win if you keep your hands up. And then, you know, should it end how it has apparently been ending consistently, you can't even win in the court system where your justice should be served. And so, again, I understand the overpowering feeling of defeat that our community is facing because there is no justice.
And it is true, because it's not easy to get an officer convicted.
Right.
You know, it's not easy at all, and it's an uphill battle. And again, a lot of times the prosecution doesn't have the resources to put up the fight that they're put against or facing.
And so I guess for me, and maybe this is a question that we can at some point present to someone who was a little bit more well-versed in the court systems and court processing, I think for individuals on the outside looking in, although I know it's not as simple as, well, look at the dash cam or look at, you know, the engagement, look at the outcome, how is he not, or how is it not found guilty?
There you go.
I think it would be beneficial maybe if someone inside of, you know, the process could explain it to me, because again, I saved myself because I feel like at this point we can be traumatized by watching videos like the little girl in the back seat, you know, crying to her mother, telling her to be quiet because she doesn't want her killed. Like, to me, that's traumatic. And so I've gotten to a point now where I just kind of got to save myself a little bit. So I haven't even watched the video, I'll be honest. But from just the responses I've seen in the little snippets, it is clear as day that was a wrongful shooting. So to me, it is, what are the loopholes? What are the twist arounds? What are the court appearances? You know, how are they being acquitted?
Well, they're being acquitted for, again, because also a threat. This whole threat issue, I think another factor in this is, again, the defense attorneys are very good defense attorneys. And let's put it honestly, how many police, and I'm not saying this rightly or wrongly, I'm just looking for justice. I want fair.
Absolutely.
I'm looking for fairness. And even to the point that how many officers who are accused of killing a black man or black lady even go to jail ahead of the trial itself.
Right. So all of those elements make it very discouraging. And for me, I was reading through, you know, some articles regarding just kind of like the recap after the officer, you know, fired into the car with Lando, and he said, you know, it was almost as if his justification was like, it happened so quickly. He was, you know, a threat. I was, you know, scared for my safety. And he talked about how, you know, his like span for reach was bigger than a wallet and all of these things. So for me, and then he said, oh, well, I smoked marijuana, and I thought, well, if you are going to be smoking with a young kid in the backseat, you don't have any care for my life. And if you can process the width in which he seemed to reach, the smell of marijuana, the fact that if he's smoking marijuana and giving secondhand smoke to a young child, he can't care about your life, how can you not slow yourself down enough to properly, you know, handle a traffic stop? So on one hand, you're saying you were just flustered, you were nervous, you thought you were at a threat, but then you're talking and you're saying enough to me to convey that you acted as if you processed this whole situation. And so it just doesn't make sense. And again, I think this is one of the most frustrating parts about this conversation is we will constantly go in circles because we're looking for understanding where there is none. We're looking for fairness where there is none. We're looking for justice where there has been none. And so at this point, we're just asking and, screaming and frustrated about trying to get to a point where at some point someone is held accountable for their actions. We just haven't seen that.
Well, one of the common threads I've heard in a lot of these trials is an officer saying, "I feared for my life."
Right.
And it appears, and I'm just putting it out there, it's almost like a safeguard statement that as long as the police officer says that, he's going to get off.
Right, and so in that context, it is this safeguard that is just as simple as that. But the other part about it is on the receiving end, where the black men who are ending up dead are giving out these warning cries to let you know I'm not a threat. When is that taken into account? He's saying, I'm not reaching for a weapon. Officer, I have a weapon. I'm just letting you know I have a weapon. My hands are up. Don't shoot. We're giving out these cries of warning to minimize the threat, to minimize the appearance of a threat, and yet and still ending up murder. So at what point does that weigh in at all?
And also, too, another thing that's got to be talked about, amongst other things, is wasn't it thought that having dash cams would help this issue?
Right. That was the argument. The argument was, dash cams will allow us to really get a clarification as to what happened. Because here's the thing to think about. We only get one side of the story, right?
That's
Once
true.
that police has fired and murdered, we're only getting that one side. And so dash cams were supposed to be that thing that gives us the truth. And yet and still we're playing these dash cams that are the only piece of evidence in some of these cases that show or demonstrate or attempt to represent the person that has lost their lives, and yet and still justice is not being served. And even Diamond, who went live and kind of recapped the occurrence from the inside of the car, gave a live view of this conversation, and yet and still these things aren't taken into evidence. So for me, I struggle, and that's why I don't watch a lot of this anymore, because I don't see the outcome being different. And so I don't know how to minimize our fear or our rage or our anger. And so it's a constant burning sadness, because it's this has just almost become norm, right?
Well, that's a really big concern, and a number of people say it's become the norm now. It just, they know what to expect. I also want to take another angle at this. What does it have to say for the juries in these court cases?
So the whole process to me needs to be stripped and reworked and rewritten and rewired and completely undone, turned upside down, because I beg to kind of question what happens when those 12 jurors go behind closed doors. How do they have to process this? How does this work? How does this look? And for us, all we see is, on one end, what we see is clearly a misrepresentation of justice, clearly an abuse of power, clearly a cold-blooded murder. And I don't understand what happens in between that, what we see in the webcam, what we see in live feeds, what goes to the courts, and how people are coming back acquitted. So and maybe you can help me understand a little bit. I guess I'm just struggling, and I don't care how much reading I do, how much research I do, how many videos I watch, how many podcasts I listen to, how many conversations I engage in. We are all asking the same question. At what point do we get justice at all?
Well, and I hear you, what you're saying there, and I guess the concerns I have...
I think your volume is off again.
Sorry about that again.
No,
my turn. Yeah, I've done 1,500 of these things. I do make mistakes, people. I am human. But, I look at it this way, too. When you see juries make these decisions, I'm wondering, what are they thinking about black men?
Right. So to me, and I think that's a powerful question, right? So if it is the idea that black men are threatening, right? And I don't care, I'm pretty sure if we played this out in a scenario where we allowed maybe a black man to just walk down the street, and we've seen how many, clutch their purse or cross the street or double looked or, put some distance between them and a black man, or maybe even turn the other direction. How do you allow that prejudice, that stereotype, the skepticism, the actual fear of black men, and then place a jury full of people who, again, if they saw a black man walking down the street at night, would probably cross the other side or would probably turn the other direction, make a decision about the justice of a black man? And so, again, it is one of those conversations that I feel like we're just going to constantly see an uproar from our people. We're going to constantly see outcry. And eventually, and don't quote me, I believe it's Martin Luther King who said, riot is the language of the unheard. And so it's only going to be so many more mothers burying their children before these riots and this violent and, vengeful kind of justice is served. So if we aren't getting it there, I am waiting for it to just turn completely in a different direction, right?
Yeah, because it just seems, and I guess the concern too is with this current state of politics in your country, that it's not even, none of this is being addressed at all by the federal government. If anything, Jeff Sessions is basically, he's being looked at as more of a way backwards, wants tough policing, etc. But no comments from the federal government on any of this. Like, couldn't care less.
Well, no, and again, we don't have time to kind of dissect all that, but if you look at everything from the court system to the jail systems to the police systems to the justice systems or court system, they are all in one way or another intertwined, so much so that there's no justice for the black man across the board. He's not getting, proper representation or proper justice across the board. And you can see that by our incarceration rates. You can see that by the heightened, increase in police brutality and murders of black men. You can see that by the police acquittals. I don't believe that there's anywhere that a black man is safe in America. And that is the sad story. And so I wonder in your world, in your space, and I guess that's the benefit of having international conversations, how, if at all different, do these types of scenarios that I heard you say earlier is happening, do you feel like they're handled different in Canada and where you are than what you see here?
I think that there is a concern. I don't think there's as much fear, but there is fear. Let's put it that way. There's still, it's not all nice and, policemen. There's still a concern. We do have some trial. There's a trial of a gentleman named Andrew Roku, okay. I believe, is happening in Canada, in Toronto right now. And these things are coming up. The response, we have there in Toronto here, there's a Black Lives Matter chapter who is very aggressive and out there. But then it leads to another conversation piece. This issue, are as many blacks outraged about this as should be outraged about this?
I feel like, excuse me, I don't want to inject my personal opinion, so I try to, not put an umbrella over just what it is. But I'll still say, in my personal opinion, every black person should be as angry and as outraged about this. There should be no peace. And I feel like, again, that goes back to what I believe is happening, and that's a numbness, right? It becomes too much to bear. And for me, I can even tell you the truth. Like, I haven't even watched the latest video because I just can't do it, right? I'm a mother of a 6-year-old. I could not imagine that being my child. And to me, that is my child, right? We are all family. And so it becomes a point where this starts to happen so frequently, and the heaviness of the depression of constantly being in fear, constantly fearing for your life. A traffic stop can end your family, everything is just a tragedy and trauma after trauma, it becomes the norm. It becomes such a frequent occurrence that it's almost as if we have become very desensitized. As sad as that is, it's like, oh, another, murder of a black man. Oh, another, murder of a black man. Oh, another. And so now I think we are almost moving about unwilling and unable to feel because it's just too much pain. Yeah, and that to me is why you don't see as much outcry, maybe, is this gets get heavier and heavier, and we don't feel like it's a hopelessness. That's what I'll say. It's when people feel hopeless, they just become paralyzed.
And just to correct, I don't know if I got the name right, but there is a trial going on in Toronto. A gentleman named Andrew Loku, who was killed by a police officer. He had some mental health challenges, and that trial continues to go on in Toronto. So, again, there is concern in the Canadian space, not only with Canadians of color, but Indigenous people, also in regards to unfair treatment by the police. And, getting back to black men of color, and you were asking me, how do I feel when I go out there? On the whole, I feel safe, but I don't feel 100% confident in that, because I can just speak from a Toronto sphere of the world. On the side of police cars for the Toronto Police Force, it says to serve and protect. Well, a number of people who are black will say to serve and protect who?
Who? And for me, here's the concern, is because we are in such fear of the outcome, right? It does invoke fear. Like, even the most mighty, strengthened, courageous people have experienced a certain level of fear because it is unpredictable, right? Literally, a traffic stop can end your life, and that certain level of unpredictability creates a strong sense of cautiousness. But what also happens is when you push for black men to behave a certain kind of way because you fear for their lives, it almost puts them in a state to not be able to function in their full capacity, because they can't even move about with power or move about in a confident way, because that becomes a threat. So what do? Do we encourage our men to stand strong and be, powerful and fearless, or do we tell them to, soften up how you speak, make sure you keep your hands up, stay out of the way, don't get caught out late? And so it's frustrating.
I think that you've got to, the old thing that every black man needs to know the talk, or have the talk, right? It's very, very important. And to say that in 2017 that still has to be done, that's enough said right there. I think also, pardon me, another aspect is the perception of police by the black environment versus the non-black environment.
Right. I mean, just even think about what you're saying, the talk, right? The reality is that any person of color who's listening to this doesn't have to have a definition of what the talk is. We know what you're talking about. But if a non-person of color was listening, they may question, well, what is the talk? And that in itself is a representation of the reality that we live in a different world, meaning that we function in different ways, in different capacity. We move about and maneuver differently than most people who feel safe and protected by the police.
Well, not only that, and another thing I'm thinking about here is that the whole, a number of years ago, I had a gentleman who had spent 15 years in the New York police force who's no longer there. And it was quite an interesting insight on what it was like to be a police officer, one of the largest city police forces in the world. And he just said, if you only knew at times, if you only knew, getting another level of this, and I'm just, as we move on deeper and deeper in this conversation, does it concern you, or are we numb now that we're not hearing more non-people of color getting upset. Obviously, there's more than there used to be, but large masses of people don't react to this who are not of color. Like, it's almost okay.
Well, I feel like the numbness comes because this is our experience, right? And so in one hand, it's like, be angered, right? I expect non-people of color to be angry because right is right and wrong is wrong, right? But at the same time, they don't live our experiences. So it becomes a point where I can't expect for them to be as enraged as we are because this is not their experience. When they are, in the midst of police officers, or if it's a crime that's happening in their environment, or if they have to call in the police, their fear is not, don't call the police because it may end up bad for you.
Well,
they're calling the police because
there's a good
they know
question.
the police are going to save them. And so you can't be outraged at the fact that they can't relate to what's happening because their experience and their understanding of police are completely different. Ours is, police will kill you, black man. Police will kill you, black woman. Their experience is, the police will save us. The police will save us. And so we're not living in the same space, so I can't expect that you understand or are as angered about something you don't know.
So here's another deeper question. How does a black person feel when they're calling for help from the police?
Sadly, I think majority of us, if not all, and I don't want to speak for all, but I'll go ahead and generalize this as much as possible. I think all of us will have that moment of hesitation to think, does this really need police interference? And the fact that you don't go directly to the source of who is supposed to save in moments of desperation, in moments of crime, in moments of trauma or whatever, the fact that you have that hesitation that says, okay, is this something that absolutely requires me to call the police? If not, I'm not going to.
I've been on the earth a little while now, and it doesn't seem that this is getting better.
Nope. My father is in his 70s, and he says that this has never changed. This hasn't changed at all. He said the only difference is that we have more insight into it. And so he said the only difference is that the cameras are on them.
That's true.
The activities haven't changed. The outcomes haven't changed. The lack of justice hasn't changed. The only thing now is we have it on the screen. We get to see it unfold. But he says it's no different. I believe that. So sadly, it's almost as if we're like, what's going on? There's a sudden, drastic increase in police brutality. Yes, there is an increase. But the reality is, I think the biggest difference is the things that have been done with technology and in this new millennial space where we have the ability to jump on Facebook and record live a police officer who had just shot our significant other, and they can't do anything about that, is the biggest difference.
Just out of curiosity, Jess, have you ever had conversations with black men about this subject? And if you have, what have they told you?
So I have had conversations in many different ways, and I tend to have a very diverse group of people around me, and so there is a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum where black men are so enraged where, and here's the crazy part about it, that when our black men do become outraged and do, let go of their anger and their hurt in a volatile way, which is a reflection of the violence inflicted on us, they become animalistic, barbaric, lacking self-control. All of these attributes are attached to them, but they're a reflection of what's our experience, where you're violent and you're destructive and you're attacking us. And so when they retaliate, it's like police get to be seen in a light of, oh my God, I was nervous, I was threatened. When black men respond in violence, then they get to be destroyed and torn down. And oh my gosh, the court systems seem to work in those cases, right? The court systems have a very strong hold on inflicting what they consider to be justice on the black man, but not those who, are harming us. And I see black men who move on the spectrum, where it's just, I'm gonna do everything from tear it all down, right? None of it belongs to us. Tear this all down. To, I'm just gonna keep my head down, keep my eyes lower, move about, and attempt not to be a threatening black man. And so I see it all, and honestly, when I look at it, both ends are sad. It's sad that you have to be that hurt and that just traumatized, that you do respond and your hurt is coming out violently. But it's equally sad to see that you're so hurt and you're traumatized that you just go completely inward. And so I see it across the spectrum.
What is this, you being a black woman, what is this doing to black women?
So that is a question that I would love for us to talk about at a time when we are able, in a deeper level, because it poses such a conflict in so many ways. So for black women, we feel and we know that even when it's not acknowledged, even when it's not given its proper reverence, even when it's not honored, we are on the front lines for black men, right? Catching bullet, like literally, like we'll stand on the front protest lines. We are in the war with you, and our whole defense, whether it be, the way in which we attempt to have a talk with our young men, or the way in which we try to, protect our black significant others and our fathers and things like that, it's devastating, right? Because there's no greater pain than seeing these mothers who have to bury their children from a violent act. To me, it's no different than Emmett Till's mother. It's seeing it repeated. And if we take that communal approach, when she cries, we hurt. And so we do come to the defense for black men, and it's painful on so many levels, because we are on the front lines in that sense, but then inside of our community, there's such a friction between the black man and black woman that's like, okay, I'm going to go to war for you because you are me. But then behind closed doors, we're warring with each other. And so it's such a complicated conversation to have, because it's so multi-layered. But in response to, just on the surface, is black women I know are sparking revolutions, ready to go to war, and that brings a sense of pride to me. Like, we aren't buckling, we aren't folding, we aren't scared to talk about it, we aren't scared to protest, to do whatever's necessary at this point. And so, in that sense, I love seeing it.
Nice. Well, we're going to start winding down. I can't speak today. Winding down the first episode of Stuff. And because I know Jazz always has things to do, so we're going to start winding it down. We always, as much as possible, want to end on a positive note. Yeah, and for a call to action. So, Jazz, what do you suggest calls to action would be in regards to making a U-turn with this issue?
So, to me, when I have just kind of been looking in from the inside out, trying to figure out, what can we do, what's within our control, because what's not within our control is being pulled over and having someone, point a gun into our car and shoot 7 shots. That's not within our control. Is trying to maybe create some reformed policies where we get back to policing our own communities, where we get back to, uniting amongst ourselves. And so in a unfortunate way, these occurrences have united us in a way that I don't know if we have been before, where you see, us rallying and protesting and, using social media to make noise and bring awareness, because even if they are acquitted, at this point the pressure that comes forth is something that is new, because we aren't being silenced. And so I would love to see what it would look like to begin kind of uniting these churches and, our Nation of Islams and our school systems and our, community service organizations and all of the institutions that are designed to serve, and actually bring them to the table and see how we can begin policing our own communities so that, we do feel safe from the inside out. And to me, it's that communal style and that village mentality that is going to save our people. And so it's a matter of uniting inside, in my thoughts. And maybe you have something different. I'd love to hear from your perspective.
I'll add to that. I have a number of different opportunities, positive opportunities for a number of different groups. I think, first of all, in the area of policing, opportunities, get out into the communities and get to know your people in your community.
Right.
Also, I believe there always can be improvements on how police are trained. Always, in these four incidents, it always seemed that black men were a threat. Under what circumstances are people a threat?
Mm-hmm.
That is also, and that's two opportunities in the area of policing I'd encourage to see. In regards to the justice system, I'm not too familiar on how lawyering works, but it just seems that the way that things are, there just needs to be better solutions and better opportunities. How come black men who are shot on camera who haven't done anything wrong, the killers are getting let off?
Yeah, so I think what if I'm understanding is getting to the place where we understand like how to lobby, how to push for change of policy and procedure, how to amend laws that are, and again, sometimes what happens is in the legal system, we don't begin to see the true impact of laws until, years down the line. We can look at like Brown versus Board of Education and different things like that, where, we don't begin to see the effects of them long term. But I think that it is past due for us to begin understanding it. And I think that's for us, right, as black men and women, to understand the legal systems, to understand our rights, to understand, how to protect ourselves in police stops, to understand if we, to what degree do we even have to engage if we don't feel safe, right? So if I don't feel safe, what things can I do if I'm pulled over or if I'm stopped that can protect myself until I do get safe, right? And I think for us to begin understanding the legal system in a more profound way is only going to assist us. And then taking that knowledge and making sure that if I become well versed in law and I become well versed in, the legal processes for navigating through this as a black man or a black woman, I go and I teach it, right? And so I think that's going to be instrumental as well. And so I agree. Looking into police training, understanding how to, police our communities from the inside out, getting connected with our members and our leaders, bringing together these organizations and these religious institutes and our school systems, and really beginning to unite across the board is the only chance I believe that we have at addressing what I don't foresee as being an issue that we're going to, talk about as you remember when. I think this is a continued issue, and at this point, the only way to be safe is to safeguard ourselves as a unit.
I will just add on to that, and just adding on to some of the things you shared, just taking it to the level. I think also getting the right representation, not only in the criminal justice system, but in the political system.
Yep.
You have to get out and vote, and also invest, as Jazz said. Make sure you know what your rights are. And
I want to encourage that at a local level and at a presidential level, because what some people don't understand is that we're not just talking about politics as the president. We're talking about, knowing who your representative is, knowing who your mayors are, knowing who are the people that are sitting at the table making decisions for you. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in boards and organizations and meetings where the people who are making decisions for the Black community don't know our experiences, don't know our day-to-day, cannot possibly, make an educated decision about our well-being. Yet, when things are being pushed out to us, it's because we don't have a representative at the table to defend us. And so I wholeheartedly agree that it is imperative that we get to a place where we have representation at the table. And so it's past due for that. Absolutely.
Well, and one of the things I always say is you're either on the table or at the table.
Right.
So,
and right now we are on the table.
Yeah, and we have to get off the table and sit at the seats instead of being on the table. One other thing I'll encourage Blacks out there to talk with each other.
Yes.
Because there's a whole other conversation piece. I won't bring up the conversation piece. I know we'll do it in a few weeks, but there has to be something said on what's going on within the Black environment. I don't use the community. I use the Black environment. And
I like that.
The more that we can share our experiences, because at the end of the day, believe it or not, we probably have more in common than we don't have in common.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Protesting is good, but the Black environment has to get more involved, find out more about their rights, find out about politics, find out about economics. There's a whole pile of things. But as Jazz said, and I'll just add on, we have to really start investing in ourselves and each other.
Yeah, truly. And the reality, sorry, you hear the thunder.
It's all right. It was the first one of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, that is 100% the reality that we have to kind of start undoing some of the things internally, the thought processes, the systems that we built internally that are very divisive, and begin to kind of rebuild in a way that is, we are all one.
Well,
so I think that is a powerful way to look at it. And I'll add this last piece, and then that's it. I feel like for the Black environment, it is beyond necessary that we move from taking passive approaches to our advancement. And so, like you said, no protest is not a passive, process. No prayer is not a passive or ineffective process. But there's so much more on the front end that allows us to, gain more control of our experience. Those are things like becoming educated about law, becoming united amongst leaders and amongst, community members, or, empowering our environment in a way that is, solid and creates just a intertwined and powerful unit. And so I think that if you look at the systems that are against us, they give a mighty template for how we can build out systems that work for us internally. And so those are my 2 cents on that one.
Well, and I was going to say, I'm going to let the lady finish, but I'll just add one short piece onto that. Know more, do more, be more.
Absolutely.
So that is a wrap on the first Stuff Epic conversation. We made it through. There are a few hiccups, and we're going to get better. We're going to get better along the way, as I say. And just like to thank Jazz for taking time out of her positive, productive schedule. Thank you for her the boss in her life for letting her do this. Yes. Also, thank the weather for holding up, because as you heard, we just had a nice big boom of lightning, and about 10 minutes before.
It waited just for us to finish. I think it's going to start coming down. I'm really happy now. But let us get through our first show, our first
conversation. Yeah. And because Jazz called me about 15, 20 before. Dr. Vibe, be wary. There's lightning. Then we get tornadoes. Said, you know what? Have faith.
Yeah.
Just have faith. So, Jazz, before we let you go, and I do see the lightning in the background, so we're going to make sure we shut off the live version real soon. How can people contact you?
Oh, absolutely. So you can follow me on all social media outlets. I'm a pretty simple girl. So Jazz Keys, Jazz, last name Keyes. That is @ on Twitter, @ on Instagram, and Jazz Keys on Facebook. And then my website is www.jazzkeys. So no matter what platform you search me on, I'm pretty easy to find.
And what's the name of your book?
If We Knew Better, the Soul Cries of Women Past and Present.
All right, and you can buy it at the website. I highly encourage you get it. It is outstanding. For myself, I'm Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, and this was another one. So stuff is now part of the Epic Conversations. If you want to touch base with me, best ways are Twitter at Dr. VIBESHOW, email Dr.VIBE at the Dr. VIBESHOW, and the website address www.thedrvibeshow.com. God willing, this becomes a bigger vision, and we'll have a separate page for stuff. We can have a separate Facebook page. We can have a separate website, separate YouTube, but we'll see. We're speaking it. We'll see if it comes to fruition. Also note that I'm a certified empowerment coach, and if you'd like a complimentary 30-minute empowerment session, touch base with me, because I'm a firm believer that the more empowerment you have in your life, the better your life will be, and the better you can help others' lives. So, on that note, you'll catch replays of this on each one of our YouTube pages, and there'll also be a post. There'll definitely be a post on my show site online, and I'm sure Jazz will too.
On all of my social media as well.
Yep. So we thank you for watching live on the replay. Again, contact us, tell us what you think, give us conversation topics. Tonight I've got about 3 or 4 more going on in my head, but it's all about you, and we want to work together with you so we win together. So, as always, I like to say, you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and your solution for someone's problem. Jazz and I love you lots of, and we look forward to seeing you tentatively a week from today, which is next Wednesday, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern Time, and we look forward to it. So remember,
Absolutely.
Sometimes you got to get smaller to get stronger. God bless, peace be well, and keep the faith, and see you next Wednesday. Good night.
See you guys next Wednesday. Good night.